Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. This week's Friday Night Magic at Home is focusing on standard, run-of-the-mill, ordinary. Nothing particularly special included. All different ways you can reframe standard. But on this channel, in our second quarter of the budget year, we have to reframe our thinking around standard. This now becomes the battleground where we need to be able to make or break our decks so that we can competitively start to push up the ladder, and by doing so earn more rewards like more free packs. Ranking is one of the more difficult ways of doing it, and it's virtually impossible as a new player, but once you've had a little bit of time under your belt and you folks out there are going to be working towards that, it becomes easier to do so. So this week we're going to be taking a look at standard from a more competitive aspect and see what we can figure out here. But before we get into all that, I've set a goal here for the channel to get to 100 subscribers.
So
and while that does not seem like
Friday
a
Night
lofty
Magic
goal,
at Home event,
I can't do it without you. So if you're finding any sort of technical value, any sort of entertainment value,
we're going to be taking a look at the format really for the first time in this channel from a more competitive standpoint.
And
we're
again,
not just
if
looking
you're seeing
at
value,
decks that are
others
easy and
probably will
inexpensive
too,
for us
so
to
be sure to
build.
push this
We
out
want
to
to start
friend
focusing our attention
who
on
may
decks
or may not play
that
arena
have
yet,
more
because
upwards
hopefully my
potential.
content is just the sort of thing that beginners
And
need
one in
order to
particular
get a
that
leg
I
up
would
on
like
the
to call
environment.
everyone's attention to is the Boros color style cycling deck. And no doubt you've seen this deck around. It's been around basically since Ikoria came out. Two cards of distinctive note, one being Flourishing Fox, a 1/1 creature for 1 that gets a +1/+1 counter every time you cycle a card. Zenith Flare is the predominant win con of the deck. It deals X damage to target, and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with cycling ability in your graveyard. And what you may guess here is that all your other cards basically have cycling 1. Some of the cheapest cycling cards out there, we're running cards that aren't even in our colors, things that we cannot or barely can produce the mana for because we have no real intention of casting those cards. The other thing that you'll notice here is that we're only running about 12 lands. The reason for that is we need an opening hand with 1 to 2 lands. Even 1 should really get us there because almost every card in our deck just replaces itself and allows us to draw another card. We also use Fabled Passage to further thin our deck, although there will be times where it may cost us a turn. We don't want that to be our 1 land in our hand. But even with 12 cards, it's not unusual to very consistently get 1 land in your hand, and very often 2. Some of the standout cards here are the Drannith Healer, which allows you to extend the game in the event that you're running a little bit long, and allows you to gain life each time you cycle a card. Also, the Valiant Rescuer, again, is here to allow you to extend the game by creating a chump block human soldier creature token chump block being not part of the official title, every time you cycle a card. This is one of the few cards in the deck that requires cycling 2, and very often we will not be cycling that if we're facing an onrush of large creatures. We will instead use this card to generate chump blockers so that we can extend that game. Most of the others here, the Footfall Crater is just for the cycling ability. The Startling Development can actually turn one of your chump blockers into a serious threat, and we do have, I believe, 3 or 4 blue mana sources here that would allow us to potentially cast that spell. Drannith Stinger allows us to deal damage to our opponents each time we cycle a card, bringing Zenith Flare a little bit closer each time we do it. One of the cards that we do occasionally end up using for the actual card as opposed to cycling is Go for Blood. If we have an event where Flourishing Fox is on the board and significantly large, we can use that as a removal against other threats, often 2 for 1ing the opponent off the Flourishing Fox. Another one that we can cast, but it's very, very difficult for us to do, would allow us to tap down 2 of our creatures and force them into a freeze effect where they don't untap during the next upkeep of your opponent. This having 2 blue, again, makes it very difficult to cast, but when push comes to shove, it might be the thing that wins you the game. The Imposing Vantasaur is another card that we basically never cast this. It really is just for the cycling ability. And Boon of the Wishgiver, again, we can cast this card in theory, but with the 2 blue, again, it's very difficult, and we are far more likely to cycle that card because really we want to end the game before we have 6 mana in play. That's just the facts, folks. This deck is probably going to be my number 1 choice to reach for in February. It has a roughly 60% win rate, even in the competitive ladders. And while it is a bit of a one-trick pony, it does have enough advantage that it will get the job done. Our old friend card advantage, the axiom being the person who draws the most cards, typically wins the game. And in most cases, you are going to outdraw your opponent with this deck 2 to 1, if not more. Really, your biggest threats with this deck are getting overrun, ironically, by something like Mono Red Bombardment, or facing up against a control deck that just says no when you drop Zenith Flare. If that happens, you probably lose. Odds are you're not going to be able to extend the game long enough to cast a second Zenith Flare unless you already have it in hand. And even then, I'd say your odds are less than 50% to win the game at that point. But without further ado, why don't we take the deck for a spin against our old friend Sparky here and see a little bit about how this deck runs.
Get ready for some friendly competition. That's going to leave a mark. Try again.
But let's not forget that the main reason that we are so interested in these Friday Night Magic at Homes is the 2 free rare or better ICRs that you get for winning just 2 matches. That's right, 1 ICR per win for the first 2 wins. It just doesn't get better return than that on Magic Arena. And while I am not a big cosmetics guy, I know a lot of you out there are really into the cosmetics, and the Friday Night Magic at Home is a great opportunity for you to partner with your local game store during these troubling and difficult times and receive a code to get 2 free cosmetics items that could be anything from card cosmetics to avatars to sleeves. Really a great opportunity to get those little special freebies that for some of us make the game more fun. And with all that having been said, please take this opportunity to like, comment, and subscribe. It is the budget way to support this budget channel because it doesn't cost you a thing. Do it for Graham. Do it for the algorithm. Do it for the iced coffee. And until next time, I'll see you in the arena.